Thanks, everybody. Welcome to Build. I'm your host, Ricky Kemler. You have loved our next guest in ER, Higher Learning, Love and Basketball. You can also catch Omar Epps in the 3rd season of Shooter, now airing on USA. You can also pick up his book, From Fatherless to Father. It is currently in stores. Before we bring him out here, let's take a quick look at Shooter on USA.
Hey, you gotta listen to this like he's not talking about your father. Yeah, but he is. I know who my father was. He was a guy who seemed to enjoy Vietnam way more than he liked raising his family. And his way of dealing with that was running off and being a hero all the time. But he had a code. There were lines he wouldn't cross. Yeah, he was a hard ass, but deep down he was a good man.
You got no clue what it's like. Your father's entire focus was to complete the mission no matter the cost. Over and over and over again. That type of grind, it'll have you doing things you never imagined. Trust me.
Everybody put your hands together for Omar Epps. Hey, man.
How you doing?
I'm good. Thanks so much for being here.
It's good to be here.
Congratulations on 3 seasons in the can of Shooter.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yes, it is pretty amazing in this landscape.
Yeah, man. I mean, shows come and go right now. It's hard to keep one around.
Yeah.
What's that like? What's it like going into the 3rd season of a show? Do you guys all just show up on set the first day like, woo, all right?
Yeah, I mean, we're excited, but it's challenging because it's like, okay, now we've got a claws in to the audience, so to say, but now we gotta, turn it up and take them on some twists and turns to keep it fresh.
One of the things that I love about when I think about an actor's job on a show like Shooter is that it has to have as many twists and turns as possible, but you also have to keep your character grounded. So your character is going to go through some big kind of soap operatic moments every other week, and you have to figure out how to make those things totally grounded and believable. That's a huge challenge for an actor that I think actors on television shows never really get credit for.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
No, it is. It is a challenge. And just, personally, when you're doing the same thing over and over again, you're a human being, even though you're an artist.
It's like the arc of it. Sorry, I'm just like, I want to explain my question a little bit more. When you do a movie, you have like 2 big moments in a movie that you're sort of constantly working towards to get there. On a TV show, you have multiple big moments and episodes sometimes, or, people die consistently throughout TV shows, and you have to have those moments as an actor. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I got it. But it's really exciting to play this character because it's just the way that John Hlavin created it. He's created the show. Our initial talks about just where the character began was in such a gray area. It was like, oh, we can just go all over the place with this, and it's going to be grounded. And it's a departure for me from what people are used to seeing me play. He's sort of he's not the bad guy. He's a good guy that made some bad decisions. But I get
you're usually the good guy.
Yeah, the save the day guy. He ends up being that. The journey now is like, how's he going to redeem himself?
Right. Yeah. So how was it working with Ryan Phillippe?
Ryan's great. We're having a great time. I mean, we're like kids in a candy store. We do all our own stunts for the most part. Right. And so all the action stuff.
The insurance company will allow you to do
it. Right. Just all that stuff. We're just having a blast with our team, and we just want to keep it going.
When they gave you this gray area character at the beginning, did you know at all that it would veer into possible villain territory?
Yeah, I had an idea.
You had an idea?
But that's what excited me about the character. I was like, oh, okay, this is kind of a curveball.
But what's kind of cool about this villain is that he's not your typical villain where you're sort of twirling your mustache or like, ha, 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 ha. Right. He's actually part of the team and kind of he's trying to be a good guy at times.
Well, for me, it's like he didn't know the rabbit hole that he was beginning from. He really thought he had good intentions. He didn't know he was being used. And so you unravel that as the seasons progress.
Oh, wow. So have you been able to kind of work with the creator of the show on building the character as well, outside of just sort of showing up on set and doing your scenes and doing them well, but like have conversations about where it would be fun to take him and stuff?
Absolutely. He's very collaborative. When we were shooting before we shot the pilot, I kind of gave him the way that I saw the character, and he speaks different languages and all this stuff that I didn't think he was paying attention to. And then I'm seeing him speak Mandarin in the scripts, and I was like, oh, whoa, I was just riffing. Now I got to go learn this stuff.
You're like, I was just trying to see if you were paying attention to me. I'm an actor. Don't do the things that I've told you to do.
And in true Hlavin style, he's like, yeah, it's going to be Mandarin, it's going to be Russian, it's going to be...
Yeah, give me more ideas. We'll see how it goes for you.
But it's fun. It gives them more textures.
Yeah. I mentioned it in the read. You have a book on shelves right now, right?
Yes.
From Fatherless to Father. What made you want to write this book? How did that project start for you?
Honestly, it came from a moment I had with my son one day. I worked a long, any working parents know, sometimes you work long days, you come home, you're tired.
You have three kids, right?
3 kids. And on this particular day, I worked like a 15-hour day. I just want to go to sleep. And my wife was like, hey, talking about our son. Oh, he's still up and, go play with him. And I was just kind of aggy. And in my mind, I heard the phrase, at least I'm here. And then, of course, I love my kids to pieces, but that phrase kept echoing in my head, like, where did that come from? And I thought to myself, perhaps it's somehow maybe me having grown up without a father had crept into my fatherhood. And so I just began a journey, exploration of self. I wanted to unpack that for myself, and it came out in this form, writing, and halfway through, I was like, oh, wow, maybe my story could be used as a tool of inspiration to others.
That's so interesting, the at least I'm here echoing in the back of your brain, because I don't know if that is singular to, like, without a father growing up. I think that's an ingrained aspect of masculinity that we have both in relationships as fathers sometimes and as husbands, that kind of, at least I'm not doing this thing that I've been trained as the one bad thing for a man to do, when there are several other things that you could be doing that affect someone's feelings and how they respond to you.
Well, for me, it was directly correlated to this moment with my son. So that's where it was anchored at for me. And it's been wonderful, the response I've gotten so far from people that have read it, no matter their backgrounds, no matter their ages. And that's really been enriching for me.
How did, when you sat down and started writing this, I mean, you had this moment and where this was echoing around in your head. Then when you sit down to start writing, how did that affect the way that you interacted with your son after that while you were writing the book?
I don't know if specifically writing the book, affected that. It's something that I'm working at every day, like everyone else. I want to be the best that I can be. And, parenthood, but specifically fatherhood, it happens in phases, just like life. Like, when you have a kid, first time you have a kid, you're like, what is this? He's just walking around trying to figure it out, and then you kind of get it going, and then they're mobile, and now that's a different phase, and then they hit 5, and then that's a different phase, and so forth and so on. So with me, I got a 19-year-old, 14-year-old, my son is 10, and I'm figuring it out.
Those are good ages to be sort of different from. That gives you some time in between, right?
A little bit. It was easier when they were younger because you could just group them together and say, hey, do this. And then now it's like there's 3 different paths, They got 3 different set of activities that they want to do.
Right, I'm not taking him with me.
Right, exactly.
You figure out what to do with him.
It's turning into that. But they're great kids, and yeah, we're finding it. And when I say finding it, I mean, like, we have our structure, things we like to do. I think there's things that all families should do. But you make your own blueprint. Even like for myself with fatherhood, people ask, how did growing up without a father affect, your fatherhood, and or were there things you were deficient in? And I'm like, well, I don't know. I know my starting point was I'm going to be in my kid's life, so I'm one step over that hump, right? And then I had some great father figures growing up. A couple of my best friends, their fathers were in their life, so I would, talk with them, and they would give me jewels, and you live and you learn.
How did that, this might be too personal of a question, but how did that phrase, at least I'm here, echoing in your head, how did that affect you as a father during the teenage years when the teenagers get like, well, I don't want you here right now?
I'm in that phase now.
The teenage years, I don't have any kids, but the teenage years, just as an idea, break my heart because you spend 10, 12 years feeding this kid, loving this kid. Yeah. They want everything to do with you. And then something clicks and you're an embarrassing nightmare for them and they couldn't be more horrible to you.
I mean, it can happen like that. But I think in our household, we stay anchored in the truth. And it's just like, look, I've been telling my kids since before they were teenagers, I felt the same way. I thought I knew it all too. It's not so much of a big deal. Don't take it so personal. You're supposed to feel that way when you're this age because you're thinking you're invincible. You're thinking, you've been told what to do for so long, and now you have a little freedom to make your own choices. Just take it easy. And I think kids nowadays, especially teenagers, they got it rough. They do have it rough because they're inundated with information 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I believe that the consequence of that is that their imaginations are being stifled, right? And so when you think about it from that perspective, it's like, it's really, it's crazy to take away a kid's phone and they literally go through withdrawal. That's scary to me, because what's that going to develop into 10, 15 years from now for that person? So, I have empathy for the millennials in that sense of and trying to understand, because they're just kids. They're trying to figure it out and figure out who they are, and it's tough.
Stifling their imaginations while also giving them this kind of like electronic mirror that consistently promotes their self-image or an idea of their
Vanity.
self-image of who they should be. Yeah, vanity.
Yeah, and I think that's the dark side of social media is that these kids, before they develop a sense of self, they're putting their sense of self on other people. So if they don't like it, then I must not be good, or if they, it must not be good. And it's like that, everyone's an individual. It doesn't have to make sense to anyone but you. I mean, when Zuckerberg first was talking about something called Facebook, I'm pretty sure everyone around him was like, what, dude? And he followed his own path, and now look.
What is it like to have been a father while also being in the entertainment industry?
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard like any other working parent. It's hard to balance out. I mean, the difference in my world is that I might be gone for 3 months tomorrow. There's not like a 9-to-5 sort of situation where there's that stability. But it's ebbs and flows, and in one sense, I guess my kids don't know anything else, so maybe it's normal to them. I don't know. But that's one of those things we're finding.
I'm curious, how did you start acting?
I went to LaGuardia High School of Performing Arts, LAG. You know what I'm saying? And I used to write for as long as I can remember, and for me, acting became a natural extension of writing. Sidney Poitier is my acting hero, and growing up watching him is just, I was just mesmerized by his gifts. And once I got into LaGuardia, it was just that was it. It was an incredible place to foster, and it still is an incredible place to foster young artists, and just to be surrounded by, artists all day. And yeah, we're getting our education, but just learning about the craft. And I was fortunate in that. I mean, I booked my first gig right out of high school, so
Really?
never looked back. Yeah.
What was the first gig?
A little film called Juice.
That's a huge part.
That's a huge part. Yeah. Thank you.
That was when movies took chances on young unknown actors.
Yeah, pretty much.
Right? You were just coming out of high school, you got into was that an audition that you had?
Yeah, that was a real audition. Like they did the cattle call and many callbacks, and classic old school New York.
Who directed Juice? Was that Dickerson?
Ernest Dickerson.
That was Ernest Dickerson? Yeah.
Shout
Wow,
out
what
to
was it
Ernest.
like working with him? That was like Spike Lee's
Spike
DP
Lee's
for a
DP,
long
yeah.
time. Yeah.
It was just a magical time. I think it was a magical time in general, culturally, and just to be able to. It's weird because when you're young, you don't know. It's like your naivete protects you. So for me, I was like, when I read the script, I was like, oh, I would love to see a film like this. This is gonna blow like any kid like me is gonna want to see this, not knowing the filmmaking, the business side of filmmaking and what have you. But the filmmaking process was amazing. It was amazing, and everyone, Sam Jackson's in the cast, Queen Latifah's in the cast, Tupac Shakur, obviously.
Was he a graduate of LaGuardia of Performing Arts as well? Or wasn't there was?
No, Pac was. Well, he went to art school in, I believe it was Maryland.
Oh, was it
like
in Maryland?
Baltimore,
Okay, I knew he. For some reason, I thought it was New York. Yeah. Wow. And that was his first movie as well, right?
That was his first film. Yeah.
What was it like working with him at that time?
It was amazing. You meet certain people, and they don't have to be famous people. You just meet certain people in life that just are like larger than life. They just have, and he was one of those people. You just knew this dude's going somewhere. I don't know where, but it's gonna be at the top of some mountain.
Wow.
And we know the rest is history.
And then, not to do like the greatest hits, even though I told you I was going to do some of the greatest hits.
The greatest hits.
You did, you were in Higher Learning, which was Singleton's second movie after Boys in the Hood, right?
Yeah.
Talk about like a director who really, I mean, what was it like working with, it must have been such a stressful scenario for him coming right after, it was right off of Boys in the Hood, right? Or was Poetic Justice after Boys in the
I
Hood?
want to say it was after Poetic Justice.
After Poetic Justice.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
But I mean, he was John Singleton that at that time and still young and just so smart and unapologetic about his voice and what he was trying to say. And I think a testament to that is you can watch that film right now and a lot of these same issues resonate, which is sad in one way, but I'm speaking to the genius of how he was able to capture those timeless things that we talk about in society.
Yeah, especially higher learning, where you have neo-Nazis on the campus, and it's very much a kind of a Charlottesville story, if you will.
I mean, you had that. You had the sexism with the girls on college campuses. You had,
Let's get some questions from our audience. Who's a question out here?
Hi.
Hey, what's up, man?
So, did you watch the original movie before you started working on the TV show, or did you try to avoid it so you can maybe have your own take on the character?
Talking about Shooter?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had seen the film. That was back in 2009, I think. Yeah. I love the film. So I'd already seen it, but I didn't necessarily revisit it because the Shooter is based on a series of books written by Stephen Hunter. And so the show was going to more delve into the books where the film was just like one portion. So that gave us creative license to just broaden it up. Yeah.
I think I have time for one more question. Who's got it? Someone have a microphone and a question? Right here, you.
Anyone? Don't be shy.
Hi.
How you doing?
Do you have a preference between working in film or television and like a highlight moment in your career that you want to share?
That's a great question. I don't have a preference. Like, I love both. Obviously 15 years ago, there was a huge gap between film and television, and there was a time where, like, people kind of looked down on television, like, if you were doing film. And when I did House, it was still kind of like that, but I just thought the show was just so incredible, and technology was changing, and now we have Netflix and so forth and so on. So for me, there's no chasm between that. And a favorite moment of my career, you said? I'm just be honest with you, is every day. Because, I mean, not to be philosophical or what have you, but like every day I get the opportunity to live out my dream. So for me, it's like the entirety of it is just so massively, such a blessing that it's like every day for me on set, and, doing stuff like this, I'm enjoying myself.
It's a cool thing when you get to live as an actor, and that becomes your working life. Every day you show up to a set, and there are lots of other people building and doing things.
Can I slightly correct you?
Of course.
It's a cool thing to do when you're working.
That's what I meant. Sorry. That's what I meant by living as a living working actor, because I think that you said every day, and every day you get to show up to something that people are building for you to stand in front of and do your craft. Yeah. Which is such a fascinating kind of thing. There's grips and gaffers and the director.
There's a lot of moving parts. And,
yeah.
I tell people all the time, with what we do, it's when you do a film, it's, let's say, 2 to 3 months of, depending on the film, you can have a crew of 200, 300, how many people, all of these little moving parts to capture this stuff,
you're saying.
To capture your attention for a couple of hours, right? You're doing a television show, if you're doing an hour show, it's basically 42 minutes of television. So you're making mini movies every 8 days. I'm just saying, when I think about it outside of it, it's like an impossible task. It's from the writing, it starts there, and then you're bringing in producers, and you're bringing in cast and the directors, and then you have the editors, the camera department, it's like so many moving parts. It's amazing. It's really amazing.
Very few people, I think, unless they work within that industry, know that it's a miracle that any of the stuff that they see on screen has made it to that place.
Right.
Most of the things, like there are 1 million pilots a year that don't get bought or get bought but don't get shot, and people are attached to them and then they fall off. Like, you're probably attached to other projects that may or may not happen. You don't really know.
Right. You don't know. I mean, that's just part of the business. But again, for me, I love it. I love the art of telling stories. I love being able to create conversations. I've been fortunate to be a part of projects that have caused conversations outside of that finite amount of time of art that people that it really resonates with people, and that's what I do it for. Yeah.
We love watching it, man. So keep up the good work.
Thank you very much.
And Shooter is on USA, and From Fatherless to Father is in bookstores now. People can check it out. And everybody, please
Amazon.com.
and Amazon.com. Everybody, please give Omar Epps a big round of applause. Let's hear it.